Hi everybody, today I will show you how to make soap. We will make soap using chemical reaction between oil and lye. Now lye, or sodium hydroxide, is a very strong base, so you will need to use caution when using it. If you're a kid, have your parents help you. I'll show you the supplies and materials you need to make your very first batch of soap. This is a look at the kind of products you will need for your first batch of soap. Many of the products are optional, but are useful to have. Nothing shown or mentioned are sponsors of the video. You want to put safety first when working with lye. I use goggles and gloves to protect myself from the lye. I also use a lab coat to protect my clothes from oil, lye, or soap batter. You can use an apron if you'd like. I will use a digital scale. I will use an infrared thermometer to measure the temperature of the oil and lye before I mix them together. I will use the mixing bowls, mixing spoons, measuring bowls, and measuring spoons. You will need your recipe ready, and a notebook is useful. You will need water and lye. You want to use distilled water, don't use tap water. Tap water has impurities that you don't want to show up in your soap. You also need a high-grade lye. Don't use lye from the hardware store. Lye from the hardware store has impurities you don't want in your soap. You will need oils. Yes, you can use oils you cook with. Today I will use coconut oil, palm oil, canola oil, and castor oil. You also use olive oil, beef tallow, or a variety of other oils. I will use shea butter to superfat my soap, which gives it a moisturizing quality. I will also use glycerin to add extra moisturizing qualities. I will use essential oils to add a nice smell to the soap. You will need a mold to put the soap batter in and solidify your soap. I will use plastic wrap to cover the mold as it cures. I will use a towel and I will use a cutting tool or pad to cut the bars of soap after it cures. Okay, I have my recipe here that I'll be using. I have my measuring bowl and a scale. I don't know how well you can see the digital numbers on the scale, but I'm going to set my camera down and hopefully you'll be able to see it. When you're using the scale, always remember to press tare on your scale. I like to use grams. If you want, you can use ounces. I like grams because I like metric. Okay, the first oil I'm going to measure out is 165 grams of canola oil. Be careful with your measurements. There you go. The next oil I'll use is coconut oil. Coconut oil is solid at cooler room temperatures or anything colder than that. You can put it in the microwave if you want to pour it, but I'll just scoop it out to measure it. The next oil I'm going to measure out is coconut oil. Coconut oil is solid at cooler room temperatures, so you can put it in the microwave if you want, or scoop it out. I'll just scoop it out. I'm going to measure out 330 grams of coconut oil. Since I have some solid coconut oil in these jars that I can't scoop out easily, I'm just going to microwave them and just pour it into the bowl. There you go, 330. I'm gonna skip my castor oil for now and add it to the other oils later. I'm gonna measure out 550 grams of palm oil now. If you measure too much, then you can take some away. Just enough to make the measurement. One gram off is okay. I'm gonna add my castor oil to this bowl. So I'm gonna tear out the 550. Then pour the castor oil in to 55 grams. One bit at a time. Okay, I used my digital scale to weigh out all my oils. So I have my solid oils here. Palm oil and coconut oil are normally more solid at room temperature. So I'm gonna put this in the microwave for a little bit to melt it down so I can mix the oils together before I add the lye. Mix them well, make sure all the oils are very well incorporated before I add my lye. Okay, I'm gonna mix my lye together. Always use gloves and goggles when you're mixing lye. Also, I would recommend that you're in a well ventilated space. Have a window open if you can. When you're mixing the lye in the water, there's a certain vapor that is given off, and that vapor can be dangerous if you breathe it in. So be in a well ventilated area. And always remember to add the lye to the water. Don't add the water to the lye. That is very important. If you add the water to the lye, you'll have a very violent reaction. I'm going to use another scale because of that first scale battery ran out. 418 grams of water. $420 grams is okay for my recipe. I'm gonna measure my lye. I don't want to go over with the lye. I need to measure out 559 grams of lye. I'm sorry, 159 grams of lye. Okay, it's important when you're adding the lye to the water. Don't add the water to the lye. Again, you want to add the lye to the water. And stir as you're mixing it in. You might notice like a vapor cloud coming up, more steam cloud. As you're mixing the lye into the water. Just the lye itself dissolving causes the water to heat up. And gives off a steam or a vapor. Again, don't breathe that in. You can see, even the heat kind of deformed my spoon a little bit. So when you're doing this, don't do this in a plastic container that would melt. This plastic is okay. Some other thinner plastics might not be as good. I'm going to go without that little bit in there. I'm gonna let this cool down to room temperature before I mix it with my oil. Okay, before we mix the lye with the oil, I want to measure out our shea butter and our glycerin and our essential oils. I want to get these ready because after we mix the oil and the lye, everything moves kind of fast paced. Back. There you go. That's 30 grams of shea butter. Next is my vegetable glycerin. 20 grams of glycerin. There you go. There's 20 grams of glycerin there. Next is my essential oils. Now I want about 50 mils of essential oils for my recipe. Today I'm going to make this soap, peppermint eucalyptus. I'll pour about 30 mils of peppermint, then I'll be 20 mils of eucalyptus. Okay, so the oil is cooled down. Right now it's about 84 degrees Fahrenheit. The lye mixture, now it's about 94 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the hovering around, let me see, yeah, about 94 or 93 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's cool enough for me. What I'll do now is I'm going to mix the lye to the oil. I have my hand blender right here. I have my essential oil, my shea butter, and my mold ready. So I'm gonna pour my lye to my oil, mix with the hand blender. It'll get to about maybe like a pudding-like texture, maybe like a thin pudding batter texture. Then I'm going to pour it into the mold. Before I pour it into the mold, I'm going to actually add the essential oil and shea butter and glycerin. So let's do this. So with one hand, I'm gonna pour my lye. With the other hand, I'm gonna mix my hand blender. In pulses. Don't get above this line. If you get above this line, you got your air bubbles. You don't want that. If you get there, then kind of tab it a little bit. Every once in a while, you stir it. And what you're looking for is trace. Trace is kind of one you can lift up the hand blender and see little spots as kind of trail of where it dropped. That's about thick enough for me, about that kind of texture, that kind of consistency. It's almost like a batter consistency. So now I'm going to add my shea butter. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Forgive me for using a thaw spoon. There's a very thick trace right there. Very thick. I'm going to add my essential oil. your mold. Kind of flatten it out as best you can. If you want, you can make a design. I don't like doing that. I like having clean cuts. Nice Saran wrap to cover it. Then you put it in the paper towel to keep it warm for a day. Okay, it has been 24 hours since we poured our soap into the mold, so we'll get it out tonight. Out of the insulation, the towel again kept it nice and warm while it was curing. We'll take it out of the Saran wrap and mold right now. When you're taking it out of this type of mold, you want to pull the silicone away from the sides of the soap loaf. Then you can tip it upside down, kind of push a little bit on the bottom and pull it up. There we go. If you want, you can cut away the edges with a knife. I use a device like this to kind of guide my cutter as I'm cutting the mold, the loaf. So I'm going to use this line to cut before, and I want the crinkle cut on both sides of the bar of soap. So I'm going to make an initial cut at the end first before I cut my first bar. I can use that for a scrap recycle loaf. And this is a nice bar of soap. If you want, you can cut the top to remove this pattern. Some people like this pattern, so I'm going to leave it. After we cut, we have to leave the bars of soap to cure for another month before we can use it. Just let it dry out more. It completes a little bit more of the reaction that it started. Still have a little bit of the lye kind of loose around and needs to meet up with the oil that's in there. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 10 bars of soap. There you go.